right. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Very well.
Very well. Good. I love it. I love it. Well, welcome to a fabulous new webinar series. This is navigating insurance cost and guiding home buyers through a volatile market. So to say that 2023 has been a very interesting year is an understatement. And so we are so excited to bring everyone this really value-packed opportunity to learn more about navigating insurance costs, what it means to home buyers, and we're going to give you a bonus. We're also going to talk to you about what it means to home sellers, because what we've discovered is that insurance is actually impacting our entire market. So without further ado, I am Natalie Davis, and I'm so excited to be your moderator for today's session. I am based in Denver, Colorado. I am a licensed realtor.
Oh, is that just me, or did we all lose Natalie there?
We all lost Natalie.
We all lost Natalie.
Can't hear you.
Well, if we lost Natalie, what? And I see myself on the screen here. Maybe I should just introduce myself. Is that okay, Natalie? Just go like, hi, hi everyone. Look, we're having a little technical difficulties, of course, but just happy to be here. Want to introduce myself.
Technical challenges on my end.
All good.
Did I lose? Okay, fabulous. So
You're
first
on,
up,
that's
our
back.
three guests. We have Eric. Eric Galliot is going to be our fabulous industry expert as we talk about insurance today. He's going to give us insight into the industry, give us tools, resources, and data that we can continue to use to make us effective and efficient practitioners. And then we also have Anthony Friedman that's joining us today. We're excited to have Anthony. A few fun facts about Anthony. He is a highly accomplished and award-winning real estate professional. He currently leads the #1 team at Northrop Realty in Howard County, Maryland. And if he looks familiar, it's probably true because he's also been seen on HGTV's House Hunters. So Anthony's focus for his clients is to make sure that he is constantly providing a 5-star experience regardless of the home price. So we are
Stand by, right?
That's it. I think I'm back. Okay. We have the fabulous Brianne Edwards with us as well today. Brianne is born and raised in Estes Park, Colorado, and she is so proud to be a native of Colorado. She's also the 2024 president for the Estes Valley Board of Realtors, and Brianne's philosophy in terms of her real estate business is to make sure that she is an advocate for her clients first and foremost. So welcome, Eric, Anthony, Brianne. Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what you're hoping to share with us today?
No, thank you for having us. This is exciting. Never, when I was a little kid, did I think I'd be doing insurance webinars, but I'm here and I'm loving it. It's a fun place to be with everybody on this call. We've had a chance to meet earlier, and this is a really good panel, everyone. So I hope you get a lot out of it. Again, my name is Eric Gallione. I come from originally really the automotive industry. I was working with auto dealers and OEMs on some of their properties and building out dealerships and working with dealers in that regard. And that brought me over to one of the large carriers, Liberty Mutual, which I learned so much from, and really that's where my insurance journey really started, getting into learning about insurtechs and launching those programs in home and auto. Got to work at another really cool insurtech before coming over to Hub. And I am now Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships for View by Hub. Super exciting. We're one of the coolest insurtech arms out there. I think we really offer a lot to our people, to our customers, to our agents, and the different companies that we work with, the other partners. So love to talk a little bit more about this as we go along through the conversation, but happy to be here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate it. Anthony, I'm going to toss it over to you. I know that I gave you just a highlight reel in terms of who you are and where you're from, but would love to just hear, just so that the attendees can hear, who are you and what are you hoping to bring to today's discussion?
Sure. So thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. We've got a great panel today. I'm excited about it. I've been in real estate the last, I would say, 13, 14 years. Like you said, I run a team with Northrop Realty. We're in Maryland, right between Baltimore and DC. So a great market, very transit, love it. Father of two, I got a 5-year-old, 2-year-old. So between that, managing the team, they all keep me busy. By no means am I an insurance expert, but I've been in this business long enough and even dabble into some real estate investing that I know enough. And we've got some exciting things to share today and some good talking points for those to consider.
Fabulous. I appreciate it, Anthony. And last but not least, Brianne, I'd love to hear from you. What are you hoping to share with our listeners and viewers today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this group. Today, I just am hoping to provide the insight. I feel like insurance in my neck of the woods changed seemingly overnight as far as some of the topics that we're going to talk about. And so I'm just hoping to bring my point of view and my experience and hopefully give other brokers out there some talking points for their clients and how to navigate this moving forward.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brianne. And we are going to dive into that. Brianne and Anthony are going to give us all of the insight in terms of what we as practitioners need to know about when we are navigating through this world of insurance. If for whatever reason you should have questions about any of the topics or experiences that we share during our time together today, please make sure that you drop your questions in the question pane. So if you just go over in the right-hand side, you'll have a drop-down that will allow you to ask questions, and we'll make sure that we address those questions as they come through so that you can walk away with all of the knowledge and information that you need to best serve your clients. So, panelists, without further ado, are you guys ready to dive in a little bit?
Sure.
Good.
I hope so. Well, here's the thing. When we talk about navigating insurance costs, I will have to tell you that it's probably not something that's at the forefront or even main area of discussion for a lot of the practitioners across the country, but there are definitely areas of this country that are having that conversation. Over the last couple of months, we've seen news stories that cover insurance companies that are pulling out of specific states. And we've also seen some of the challenges that these insurance companies are facing when they're looking at the actual premium costs that are associated with the policies that they have. For example, in the state of California, they've shown that there is policy in place currently that will prohibit an insurance company from raising a homeowner's premium by more than 7% without that going to public hearing. So with that being a big, huge challenge, it's not that we're necessarily seeing this big, massive overhaul outside of those stories that are making the news. So I would love to turn it over to you, Brianne, because you have a firsthand experience in terms of the increased premiums that you've seen and how that has impacted your clients mid-transaction. So why don't you kind of walk us through what you've experienced in terms of those increasing premium costs?
Sure. Thank you, Natalie. This is a current transaction with one of my buyers downsizing, and right as we were going under contract, he's good friends with a retired local insurance agent, and his friend had really advised him to seek insurance as soon as possible. There was kind of a date in October that was kind of a deadline to get those applications in for new insurance in our area. And it was, the timing was funny because I had a conversation almost the same day with the agent that had replaced that one. Long story a little bit shorter, his premium for his new home that he was under contract on came in at $12,000 versus the $2,900 that he was kind of planning and anticipating for. So, and this is, we are rural, but we're not isolated. The insured home had all of the, the fire hydrant, the, good concrete siding. It had taken the steps to be more proactive against, for fire mitigation, but that's just what he was, and that was the best deal that he was able to find initially. So.
Wow, that's significant, Brianne. I mean, we're talking, you're working with a client, navigating through that process. You're a little shy of $3,000 in terms of premium cost. That's the expectation going into the transaction. And then the reality for that is that it was actually a $12,000 premium, or close to $12,000 premium that he was actually going to incur.
Correct. And when you're trying to buy a house and make all the numbers work, that's a really big hurdle to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we know that a lot of our clients are sensitive to, especially our buyers, when they're looking at, potential exposure to mortgage interest, insurance costs, if they're looking at premium, or the monthly mortgage payments, and then the premium for their homeowner's insurance. That's not necessarily something that is at the forefront of that conversation. Definitely not something that's being discussed when you're out shopping for homes. And so we're going to talk about best practices a little bit later in our time together today. But I think it's really important for us to have this understanding that these experiences, these instances are already happening within communities. And Colorado is not one of the states that companies have started pulling out of, but that's not necessarily true for the entire state, and we'll circle back around to that. Anthony, I want to come to you just to kind of get some insight, because you too have had some experience with working with clients and the impact of just the insurance premium on their purchase. So when you're looking at this from a buy-sell standpoint, why don't you share your story with us, with your clients that were relocating out of the area, and how insurance premiums impacted them?
Sure. So in my market, insurance is typically pretty straightforward. We're just selling single family homes in, suburban neighborhoods. We're not dealing with a whole lot of waterfronts or condominiums or things like that. And we do some of that, but for the most part, it's pretty straightforward. However, where I think we see the biggest impact is where our clients are going. So like I said earlier, we're in Maryland. We're right between Baltimore and DC. It's very transit. A lot of our clients are either going to Delaware beaches, North Carolina to retire, or Florida to retire. And I had a situation recently, and this is the story we talked about, is my clients relocating from Maryland to Florida didn't really think much of it. We had been in touch for almost 2 years about selling their home here in Maryland, and we've been going back and forth. We met several times. They kept going to Florida to go to open houses. I try to encourage them to talk to a real estate agent and have that representation and get a better handle of what they need to do to get their ducks in a row down there. But they kind of felt like, they knew what they needed to do. They would just go to open houses, and it was going to be the same process as it is here in Maryland. Well, when it finally got time to make an offer on their dream home, the home that they finally got excited about, they realized that buying a house in Florida was substantially more expensive because of insurance. And then as they dove more into it, there were some properties that they couldn't even get insurance on. So it was either going to be this massive additional insurance amount, or in some cases you couldn't even get insurance. And I'm not familiar with that. I'm not in that market, but it delayed things here in their listing process with me. So we were, kind of indirectly impacted there. And then, we eventually, the agent down there and I spoke and helped get them going in the right direction. But it was not as easy of a process as they thought, because we just weren't aware of the insurance situation down there in that market.
Yeah, absolutely. And Anthony, thank you so much for sharing that. A big key piece in that is having that understanding of where your migration population is going for your specific area. So if that's something that you as a practitioner has not taken that opportunity to dial into, I would highly encourage you to dial into that piece of it. But as Anthony mentioned, you have clients, sellers that are selling and moving out of your area into a new area, new state, and they're excited about this process, anticipating or expecting it to look one way, and then they receive a massive curveball. And when we're looking at this, I mean, Anthony, you shared there were some properties that were not even insurable. You couldn't even get insurance on. And so that is going to absolutely not just impact their experience, but the outcome of that client if you don't have a team of trusted advisors to really help them navigate through the entire process. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, which is where our expert comes in, right? So Anthony, Brianna, and myself, we've shared. We are not the experts in the world of real estate, but Eric, you are. And so we've talked about increase in premium costs. We've talked about potential companies that are pulling out of markets. When we look at climate change or even just increase in like catastrophic events that we've seen across the country, all of those factors impact insurance premiums and the home buyer's buying process. I would love for you to share with us, just so we, as a practitioner, can have additional insight and a better understanding. What are you seeing on your end in terms of just the industry trends, and maybe even give us a little bit of background that will help us in understanding how we've come to where we are today?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate these stories too. And team, everyone on this call, there's a handout there, a View by Hub handout that you can check out while you're listening to us and for later on. So it's right there in the box PDF. So I just wanted to share that. But to Anthony's point, I think there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, well, it's not really happening in my market, right? I haven't seen anything in my market just yet, so it should be fine. Maybe I'm not on the coast, or maybe I'm not in California or Florida or whatever it might be. But the world is shrinking a little bit, and these markets are becoming affected more and more, right? Especially with climate change. I have to call out this comment that Travis Hodges, one of the senior leaders here, brings up here at View, brings up a lot. But 25% of flood damage occurs outside of flood zones, right? Like that's a big number, and it's not something that maybe a buyer is thinking about at that point, right? That's a huge number. I can tell you that insurance rates we're seeing at least are rising between 12, some up to 20%. Beyond your comment that you had made earlier, that's a crazy number that went up. We're seeing it. A lot of that happened, I think you can say, is back to kind of what our policymakers were doing the last few years. Insurance companies have really been taking a hit because they haven't been able to bring up rates at all, really. They've done it incrementally, but it should have been able to kind of go in like a little bit of a flow that would be a little bit more comfortable. Instead, it's just being huge chunks and huge rate increases now. But because of those limitations on the insurance carriers, they're just not writing in a lot of places. They're just like, hey, it's not worth it for us. So they need to raise rates. And I know it's the insurance guy saying, oh, the insurance companies need to raise rates. That's easy for me to say, but it's true to an extent, because it does keep it healthy. It keeps the insurance industry healthy and has them continue to write in different places that they normally would. When things are constrained as they are, they pull back, and that's where we start seeing a lot of the hurt in the marketplace today, right? The climate change issue is not going away. The weather events are not going away. Wind and wildfires, of course, are huge, but the flooding, again, going back to flooding, is a massive problem in places that hadn't been problems even before. So we're even seeing stuff in New York and Pennsylvania and Vermont, just things that hadn't been a thing to worry about in the past are now. And we need to then start thinking about, well, how can we still do our jobs, right? Anthony and Brianna, you guys are out there doing it, and everyone on this call are trying to do their jobs and bring up insurance and make deals happen. That's where we think we can help a little bit in terms of our, when I say we, I'm talking, of course, View, and giving a little bit of choice for all of you to find different options for your consumers, and maybe not have to take that big hit because that's all they can find from the local agent, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it makes sense. Thank you so much for that, Eric. And that's, I think, having strategic partners that you can really rely on and turn to be the expert is what's key. We are in no way, shape, or form saying that we as real estate practitioners need to dabble in the world of home insurance, but having a trusted advisor, like Eric mentioned, Eric and his team at View, they're able to provide you with that data, that research, that so you have a better understanding. Eric, something that I saw as you talk about just like the climate change and the impact on just within different areas of the country. I mean, we continue to hear, you know, tornadoes that are occurring in places that typically didn't have tornadoes, and hurricanes that are occurring more frequently. And as you mentioned, something unfortunately that we experienced here in Colorado was wildfires as well. And there are a lot of steps that we are proactively taking in terms of wildfire mitigation and having that understanding and education for the community. But the consumer also needs to be aware of the potential of those rising insurance premium costs. And one thing that I saw and that your company shared with me in terms of data is that according to a recent credit rating agency's report, that's AM Best, they noted that the U.S. home insurance industry has had 3 straight years of underwriting losses, right? So if we have 3 consecutive years of losses, we're going to continue to see the impact. Unfortunately, it's the consumer that feels that, but we definitely don't want them to be blindsided. Yeah.
For sure. And you nailed it right there. I mean, that's not sustainable, right? So something has to give in that regard. And it's usually pull out of certain markets or raise rates, right? And that's where we start to feel it. Anthony bringing these conversations up earlier with their clients. That's spot on. Like you are one of those TV shows, the House Hunter shows, Anthony, which I think is so cool. And we were talking about this internally, but we had never seen that insurance. No one ever talks about insurance on those shows. Like that's not a fun thing to talk about. The producers don't want to talk about it, but we did actually see a show have it. One of the agents brought up the conversation like right away. And we were all blindsided here because we're like, we couldn't believe it. We actually passed it around a little bit. Like, wow, they're talking about this now. But that's one of the first things you can do is let's make sure that you can buy this house, right? Without having to worry about insurance at the last second. And that's one of the first things that this team can do. And we want to help you with that and give you those options for sure.
It's like,
that's
Eric,
awesome, Eric. Thank you for that.
Contractors, why not? You know, you do all that in advance, right? Like you talk to your lender about the financing, you talked about contractor, what you want to do for estimates. Why not talk to insurance and look at going into it so you're not blindsided down the road?
Unless you talk to my contractor who's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure out that price later. He doesn't.
Yeah. Not that.
Those are always fun. The later is always fun. I love that. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, and thank you for sharing that because Eric, you are actually leading us down another route that I'd love us to touch on that is actually impacting practitioners right now. And Brianne, I want to bring it back to you. Eric talked about, you know, insurance companies that are just pulling out of markets and or premiums that are going up within certain markets as well. Outside of your big increase in premium, you were introduced to the term risk bucket being filled. And so that was not something that was on your radar before. Kind of talk to us about that. If we have a conversation and we come across that, what does that mean and how is it going to impact our clients? And how did you happen upon a risk bucket being filled?
Absolutely. So it's one of our local insurance brokers come into our membership meeting. She I don't know, a couple of days before our meeting, had been told by her upper umbrella that she had reached her risk limit. So she could not insure any more properties in our market. Hard for her being a small town local broker to have to come to the real estate experts to let them know that. But she did come with a solution. You know, she was networking with other people under her umbrella that had risk buckets that weren't full, that could potentially take on properties. You know, but as a small community, we, you know, really rely on those relationships. So it was a shock and it was hard to hear, but we adjust and you meet new people and network with new companies, and because ultimately we have that responsibility to our clients.
Absolutely. And this is, again, an important piece in making sure that you are maintaining that open line of communication with your preferred partners. Because when you think about this, if we just continue to rely on the fact that product will be available at any given moment, what we're realizing is that is not necessarily the reality. And so having that constant communication with our strategic partners is so key, because, Fran, you could have just simply referred that client out to this insurance brokerage that no longer they can't write a policy within that community. So for you, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of this, when anything goes sideways in a transaction, it's the realtor's fault that that's not available. So ultimately, it's your fault that there's no insurance available for the purchase of that property. So making sure you have that open line of communication and discussing that risk bucket piece. And Eric, I'm going to come back to you in a little bit so you can give us a little bit more insight in that, because I think there are some learning opportunities. But Anthony, you
can get there. Jump in. You got me. Definitely come back to me on that, please.
Okay, I absolutely will. Definitely. Well, I'm going to let you do a 1-2 because Anthony had a great story that he shared with us as well as we were preparing, just to get greater insight on insurance and navigating the space with our clients. Anthony, you had a big surprise of a $45,000 water claim that people were not aware of. Why don't you tell us that story and the experience and expertise that you had to bring to the table for your clients during that process?
Sure. It was 42,000, by the way, so quite a big insurance. But it was quite the surprise. And we don't see a lot of it in my market, but it's not the first time I've heard that, and it's really unfortunate because you go through and we're all in different markets here, but you go through the disclosures up front even before preparing an offer, I'm sorry. And there's nothing there that talks about it in this case and previous case that I was in regarding an insurance claim, because in their mind it was fixed, right? It was already taken care of professionally by contractors, and I think an attorney would argue, well, hey, it's been taken care of, right? So nothing necessary to disclose. But if you think about it, buying a house is very emotional, right? I think most people are going to buy a house on emotions first and then back it logically, right? It's how does it make them feel? And that's going to be where they raise their family and bring their babies home to and all the rest, right? And then they try to back their decision logically. So they get excited about this house. They make an offer. In this case, it was competitive. We get it under contract. We go through our inspection phase. Everything's smooth sailing. So there was nothing in the disclosures. Nothing came up in the inspections. In fact, everything looked really, really good. It was almost like a fairly new house, under 10 years. There was things that were replaced, and we were just like, oh, this is great. A homeowner that's really on top of things. Well, come to find out, when my client was finalizing insurance, I believe they caught the clue report came up. Is that right, Eric? Okay. So it comes up and the insurance agent goes, hey, did you know there was a $42,000 water damage claim a year or two ago, whatever it was? You should ask the sellers about that. So again, going back to it being a very emotional process buying a house, my clients at first, the first reaction is like, what in the heck? Like $42,000 water damage. They're panicking, like they're thinking water, they're thinking mold, like, hey, I got to go back and inspect this house. What happened? So after we had a chance to talk about it, we went back to the seller, we collected some information. Everybody was fine, and we're settling tomorrow. So it's all good. However, it can be a big surprise, and it can potentially jeopardize some deals. So how can we get ahead of that, I think is the question.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's where Eric gets to step in and let us know that. Here's the piece, if you've not picked up on this already, we are all living through history right now, right? Like this is going to be a new way, a new approach, an opportunity for us to improve and improve our client experience that we create. So Eric, you just heard these two short stories from Anthony and Brianne, when we talk about a risk bucket being filled, when we talk about these claims that are popping up on Clue reports, give us some insight. Like, what do we need to know? One, when we're looking at like insurance agents or brokerages versus like bigger brands that we that are out there, and how we can best help our clients, or how View is able to position us to help our clients.
Yeah, I mean, these are, I wish I had like a blanket that I could just throw over these horror stories and say it's going to be all right and everything's warm and fuzzy, but that's not reality, right? Like, that's why you guys are all experts in your field, and Anthony's finishing that deal somehow. I don't know how, Anthony. Good on you, but you're closing that deal.
I was
Great.
just going to say, good on you. You're literally living through it, Anthony, so good on you.
But you guys are the experts, and if you're on this webinar, you obviously are an expert, or you're really working hard to get to one. So you're trying to find out everything you can about the industry and some of the hardships and some of the headwinds that are involved, and how do I make it better for my client, right? So there's no perfect fix for this right now, but there are things that, to Anthony's point, Brianne's point, of getting ahead of some of these things. I wanted just to go back to what Brianne was saying about that local broker. They've only got so many tools, right? They only have so many tools in their toolbox to come up with the right policy or plan or program for that customer. What we do at View is we're trying to be agnostic, really, in a way. We are a really great digital platform that's easy to use for you, for your clients. And what we can really do is just give you a bunch of options, right, in your market. And here are the different options for your consumer. And maybe it's like looking at it at 30,000 feet. Like, here's everything that's there, but maybe my local person doesn't know about it. But our team does. We have these different opportunities. We're tied to all these different carriers and a lot of regional carriers. And our team of experts, our agency team, will get on the phone and speak to your client and come up with different policies and different things that they can add to that policy if they need to, their second home, their toys, etc. But you can kind of stay out of it. What you're doing as an agent really is, here's the best options for you, customer. What can we do? What's the best one? Not all of them are going to be great, right? That's just what the market is today. But we'll get you the best one, right? And maybe we couldn't do that if we were just talking to one person or one local space. So I think that's where we can help you in getting in front of this early and saying, here's the different options for you, and this is what your insurance is actually going to look like when we're shopping for homes in this market, right, Anthony, in this town, whatever it might be that they're looking at. That's where we can help. And there's other tools like us, of course, but I feel very strongly that we have the team, the agency team, that can get on and actually work with your clients in a way that represents you, I think. Let's put it that way.
Perfect. I love that. I think that's amazing, Eric. I mean, that's really what our clients are looking for, is to have an understanding of what comes next. And what you've just described paints that clear path for them so that there aren't those surprises at the tail end. And as you mentioned, kudos to you, Anthony, on making it over the finish line. But that's truly what we want to make sure, that if we happen to encounter those surprises, what can we do to just give our clients the blanket, Eric? We like to give them the blanket to let them know it's going to be okay. Give them the blanket, let them know it's going to be okay, and here's what the next steps look like, because I have people on my team that are experts in that area.
And I should say this more, Natalie. I should have used this word more during this call, this conversation, but choice. Really, you're really giving your consumers choice. And from my background, as you know, coming from a really large carrier, we've built all the digital tools. We've done all of that, and we've been able to get customers into these different flows and these ecosystems and these customer journeys. But without the choice piece that View has and others like us have, you're not staying as neutral as you'd probably like to as an agent, right? And it's not giving a full view. I said I wasn't going to do it, but it's not giving a full view of the full landscape.
There you go. Yes.
I didn't mean to do it. I said I wasn't going to, but I can't help it. But it doesn't give you that full view of the full landscape of what's available to your consumers. That choice piece and talking about choice, and you guys will see that as you go through your different options, and if you talk to me later on. But being able to offer choice is so crucial when there's not a lot of choices right now, right? So you got to get yeah.
Absolutely. And as practitioners, that's something that we embrace as well. We always want to provide our clients with a choice so that they can make the decision. So that aligns really well with how we operate and how we structure our businesses. I love that. Well, I am a big fan of always making sure that we're leaving everyone with tools, resources, best practices. So let's just pivot really quickly and give some of our attendees some tools and tips that they can put in their tool belt, and even potentially processes that they can start to incorporate in their own business when working with buyers and sellers. And so to kick us off, Anthony, can you share with us some of the processes that you put in place when discussing insurance with your sellers and what that looks like, at least for you moving forward?
Sure. Kind of just going back to those two stories we shared earlier, it's, talking up front, right? Setting expectations. Hey, where are you going? What market are you staying in this market? Are you going to a different market? Even if you're in the same market, a different type of house can mean very different insurance. Like, we do have waterfront properties in Maryland, and we do have a lot of people go to retirement in Delaware, the Carolinas, or Florida, like I said, but we also have the Eastern Shore, right? So a waterfront property there might look very different. So where are you going? Let's be prepared for it. And then also, kind of going back to the other story, have you had any insurance claims? Let's talk about it now. Is there any, has everything been taken care of? Is that something that we need to look at disclosing? Is that something we want to prepare the buyer up front, or try to get ahead of it so there's no surprises in the middle of a transaction, right? Because that can really ruin momentum and potentially hurt a deal.
Beautiful. I think that's great. Yeah, Anthony, I think that's beautiful, and you're absolutely right. If that question is not part of your seller consultation, where you ask, have you had an insurance claim on the property in the last couple of years, have that conversation with them, because in the consumer's mind, they may just believe that there was an insurance claim, all the work is done, and there's nothing to worry about, right, in terms of disclosure. And depending where you are and what your state's position is on disclosure, you still want to make sure that that doesn't surprise a potential buyer down the road, and that you as the practitioner can respond accordingly where you're not caught off guard should something like that pop up. Great advice. I love it. Brienne, how about working with buyers? You've been lucky you to live through this and kind of learn about like navigating through insurance just over the last couple of months. What are new processes or steps that you've implemented in your system, in your business, when working with your buyers?
Well, like Anthony said, it's so important to set expectations very early on, just like we do for our lenders and other industry partners that we use throughout the process. It's the same thing for the buyer. And as soon as they are, I don't want to say pre-offer, it depends on, properties are still moving really quickly in some areas. So maybe it is a pre-offer thing that they need to look at insurance in that particular area. But please don't wait until the insurance deadline to start getting quotes, and because I wouldn't ever want insurance to be a barrier to home ownership. So again, it's in that initial buyer consultation, but then it's as soon as we're ready to start writing offers, have you talked to your insurance company, and even reaching out to the listing agent as far as, is the seller willing to share with us pre-offer who their insurance company is to make sure it's still insurable. We always want our clients to make well-informed decisions, and I think this is just going to be part of it.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's fabulous.
Natalie,
go right ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, just to jump in here. One more thing I meant to share, Natalie, is, I don't know about your guys' markets, but I know our market, we've seen a lot of competitive situations and a heck of a lot of rent back scenarios. And our post-occupancy rent back forms, they'll read, there's several options. And one of those options is that the seller can cover the buyer's carrying costs, or PITI. Well, if you're going to do that, it's very important not to just check that off, but go a step further, touch base with that lender, and get expectations for your seller, for your client, to know exactly what they're going to be covering, if they are going to be covering that. Because the last thing you want is a surprise. And I heard a horror story the other day from another broker, not in our office, but someone else, that it was a surprise at settlement. They saw because of insurance. The insurance was so much higher than what they were expecting. I think the seller just said, yeah, I'll agree to the PITI in that case. And they did some math, in their own head, like, all right, well, if they're at a 7% rate, this is what I can expect to pay. But they never actually heard that from the lender. And when they saw what that final number was, because the insurance went up so much for that particular buyer, that seller nearly had a panic attack, and it was a last minute surprise. So just always doing your due diligence, always getting ahead of things, always setting expectations, taking it that step further. And insurance is something certainly to get ahead of.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our hope is that this webinar will at least give you a starting point to put some processes in place so that you don't have to live through these surprise stories that we've just shared today, or any of the other stories that you've heard within the market. I do want to remind everyone of a couple of things. If you have questions, please jot them in the chat. And then also, if you have not downloaded the View handout, it is in the handout tab as well, so that you have access to that and you can learn more about View. Pretty consistent with what we heard from Anthony and Brianne. Make sure that you have a process in place when working with buyer and sellers. Make sure that you're setting very clear expectations for them. Number one key, don't wait until your buyers fall in love with the house before having the conversation about insurance. You don't want them to realize that they just fell in love with a home that they can no longer afford. And building out your team of experts so that you can provide choices to your clients when they are navigating through the home buying, home selling process. Eric, I'd love to turn it over to you. We've touched on a ton, I think. What are some closing thoughts that you have for us to make us better practitioners so that we can provide better service to our clients?
I appreciate that, and again, thanks for the time today. And it's a lot of fun to meet these guys here. It's been a pleasure. No, I keep hearing, last minute, right? Like last minute surprises and everything. And if I put my old hat, I'm old enough to say that now, but I have my old auto hat. And car dealers never wanted anything that interfered with the sale of a car, right? Like, oh, we'll worry about insurance at the end. I don't want anything to interfere with the sale of the car. And that's kind of how InsurTech started, and we'll put it at the end. But it's not a box check anymore, right? Like it's not like, oh, like it's not an automatic. There'll be insurance at the end of this process, right? For you guys, we have to get in front of it. So this team here has brought that up multiple times here, but it is true. And again, it's not. I'm not a savior here. I don't have an answer for all of this. I can just tell you that we can give you some tools to help you and your consumers make the right choice and have the different options and speak to the right people that can help them get the best deal for themselves and for their families. Getting in front of it, making sure that you're doing those things to do that at the time of excitement about buying a house. I just think people get more upset when they're surprised than hearing it up front, right? If we hear it up front, we can deal with it. Let's figure out what can we get. What's the best thing for us? This is what reality is. Falling in love and then losing it later, that hurts. I'm getting emotional, but that's just that's life, right? So if we can give those tools to the team here and the people on this call to give their consumers the choice and neutrality and the unbiased advice, I think that they're going to be better for it. And I think the people, like I said, on this call are trying to be better at their jobs and better for their clients. So please, my information is in that PDF, that handout. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's see if I can help you in any way. And of course, I'm sure the others on this call feel the same. Beautiful. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And if you're looking for View, it's just like the logo that's on the bottom right-hand side of your screen, VIU by Hub. And as Eric mentioned, his contact information is on the handout as well. Anthony, Brianne, any closing thoughts that you have for us before we take a look at Q&A, which I don't see any Q&A right now?
No, not on my end. Just, like we've been saying, that the trend here, expectations, set them up front, have the conversations, ask the questions, and be that knowledge broker that we all are.
Absolutely. Perfect advice, Anthony. I think that that's fabulous. Well, I want to be the first to thank the three of you for taking time out of your day to join us on this panel today. Brianne, Anthony, Eric, thank you, thank you, thank you. I have, for one, have a lot of ahas and takeaways, and definitely new steps and processes that I'm going to apply to my own business and the way that I teach other agents to build out their book of business. If you have someone in your office or know someone that would love to see this recording and they weren't able to join us, or you need to watch the replay to hear some of the tips and takeaways, the replay will be available shortly. Just keep an eye in your email for that link. And then we hope that you have enjoyed today's webinar series, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.